It's time to put your health in your own hands. Get ready to learn from today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, the diabetes nurse, Mary COSTA. Mary is a registered nurse and certified diabetes educator, and she has worked for one of the largest HMOs in the country for more than 35 years. She works exclusively with adults who have diabetes, consulting, teaching, advising, and adjusting medications by protocol to help her patients reach healthy blood sugar levels. She is the president and CEO of Transform Your Diabetes Health, an online organization which offers education and coaching for people with diabetes that includes holistic and integrative health practices. Mary is the international #1 best-selling author of The Diabetes Blueprint, 5 Simple Steps to Double Your Energy, Eliminate Brain Fog, Feel Younger, and Lose the Weight so you can feel sexy and happy again. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Tammy. It's great to be with you today.
So tell me more about diabetes and the problem it is for people around the world, and especially in the United States.
Yes, it's actually pretty scary because we have over 300 million people in this country, and at the present time, 1 in 3, that's over 100 million actually, that either have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. That's a lot of people, and come maybe 2040, somewhere around there, 1 in 2 will have diabetes, and it's so prevalent that they actually predict, this is a global issue, they actually predict that some countries will collapse under the weight of paying for the complications of diabetes, which are immense. We're talking about things like dialysis, blindness, heart attack, and stroke, which we know are very disabling as a result of diabetes that's not in good control. And my frustration is it doesn't have to be that way. We can get a hold of this disease and manage it so that people don't have to suffer the complications of diabetes, and so they can have a great quality of life.
Oh my goodness, 1 in 3 with the potential of 1 in every 2 people. Now, before I get into asking you more, I understand that you mentioned type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, and then I understand there's a type 1. What is the difference between a type 1 and a type 2 diabetes?
Great question, Tammy, and I'm also going to introduce there's a type 3 diabetes. But type 1 diabetes is when at some point in time a virus entered your body. It's an autoimmune process, and it completely burns out those pancreatic cells that make insulin. And insulin is what escorts into the cell the sugar that's broken down from the food that you eat. And so they actually have to inject insulin to live. They cannot go more than 3 days without insulin and continue to live. Whereas type 2 diabetes, their body still produces insulin, but they have something called insulin resistance. And so they need to try and reduce that resistance to their own body's insulin, sometimes by injecting insulin. And that's where it gets confusing, because people that have type 2 diabetes, when they start on insulin, assume they have type 1 diabetes, but it's not the case at all. And then most recently, they're introducing, and this is from a complication of diabetes for both type 1 and type 2 diabetics, is Alzheimer's and dementia, because the brain is so sensitive to high blood sugar levels that it creates this early dementia and Alzheimer's. So, and actually there's more than 3 different types, but I don't want to get into that because it's very complex. But it is very frustrating, the number of adults that we have, and even the children in our country that have diabetes.
That is just, oh my God, that is exactly, I was listening, I had my microphone on mute and out of my mouth was, oh my God, because you're talking about, when you start to lose your mental capability. And of course, we're bombarded on TV all the time. I see all of these different medications for diabetes, and the people are jumping around having a grand old time. And then there's another commercial where the people don't even seem to realize that if you have diabetes, that your risk for heart disease and stroke and other complications goes up. I was kind of amazed that people with active diabetes don't know their risk factors. And that's something that you do. You're an educator. And I had a couple questions. Why in the world is diabetes so prevalent? And if you're talking 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2 people, plus, of course, the Alzheimer's, why is it so... why? What is the reason why it's growing at such a huge, fast rate? I mean, if 1 out of 2 people by 2040 would have diabetes or pre-diabetes, what is it that we're doing that is so different that we're creating this health crisis?
Well, there's actually a lot of things involved in that. One of them is, I don't know, I'm old enough that when McDonald's first came out with a burger and fries, it was very little food. Well, now try going to McDonald's and they're going to give you, even if you order a small, they give you huge amounts of food. So one is the quantity of food that we consume. Second is the quality of the food that we consume. We're eating a bunch of fast food in all of it. You go to any restaurant, especially, well, I'm just going to say I've had a patient who was a chef at a Chinese restaurant, and I asked him, why is it that it seems like when patients go to a Chinese restaurant, their blood sugar skyrocket? And he said, Mary, we put sugar in everything. It's called cornstarch. And so we're looking, the quality of everything now has sugar, some form of sugar in it, which boosts up your blood sugar, which makes your insulin secrete, or your body secrete more insulin. And so after a while, everything gets tired. And then last but not least, and there's more factors, but the one that bugs me the most is for years, our own government can't seem to get it right that the diet that people with diabetes, for the most part, should be eating should not contain a whole lot of carbohydrates. And if you look at the old food guide pyramids, or even now they have a Choose My Plate, they show the food plate with more than 50% being carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are the only food source that has to have insulin to be processed all the way through.
Oh, that's interesting. So somebody like me who's more of a meat eater, I'm actually doing better. Meat or chicken, I just use meat as a general term, just like, so, but yeah, you're absolutely right, because I remember the food pyramid was based on whole grains, carbohydrates, bread, cereal. In other words, the government's saying, here, eat the food that is affordable and cheap, and build your base on it. Just like if you look at many cultures, they do build their base on like, for example, if you use rice or potatoes as base, and then you put a little bit of meat and vegetables on it to expand the food. Because I've even heard, like, for example, India has a huge diabetes crisis. And they're like primarily vegetarian, and they eat chicken. But they also love their chai tea with a lot of sugar in it. And I find that's interesting. So basically, fast foods, way too many carbs, and we're eating all this hidden sugar. So I actually visited your Facebook page right before our call today, and I was going, "Oh my goodness, look at all this really good food!" Like I saw a substitute for mayonnaise that was avocado and Greek yogurt, for example. That looked really good. I saw a tuna burger that looked really good that had flaxseed. So tell me a little bit more about your book. You've written a book called The Diabetes Blueprint: 5 Simple Steps to Double Your Energy, Eliminate Brain Fog, Feel Younger, Lose the Weight so you can feel sexy and happy again. I love the title. But fog, and of course, feeling old and decrepit and tired, and of course, being overweight are all symptoms of not only people with diabetes, but it just seems like many people have, brain fog and things. So you have 5 simple steps. Can you briefly outline what those steps would be?
Yeah, the first simple step is about knowing why you would want to be healthy, and I call it the carrot. And how I started with this is years ago, I would work with patients, and I would be very prescriptive. You need to do, exercise, you need to eat this. And of course, at the time, it was a food guide pyramid. And I'd give them all these things to do and have them come back in 3 weeks. And of course, they did nothing that I asked them to do. And I realized that, okay, I'm going at this backwards. What is it that you want to do? And then we began to work at that. And then when I found the most success in helping with people is finding out something that was like a carrot in front of them. For instance, one of my patients, I finally was able to get from her that she was really worried she would lose her sight, and what she really wanted to do was just to see her daughter graduate. And so to me, that's a carrot. And we all need that carrot in front of us to go for. And so the first one is about, your health. What is it that you want to have as a goal so that you'll keep looking towards your health? What is your why for that? And then the other one is about sticking. And here's a kind of a sad statistics, and this has been all along, is that 95% of people with type 2 diabetes can manage successfully their diabetes with the way they eat and adding exercise. But here's the sad part, Tammy, is that 95% won't do that. And my theory behind that is, I'll admit, I've tried every diet in the book. You might admit to the same thing, but when you're hungry, when you're thinking about food, when you're craving it, when you need something quick and convenient, when you don't have good recipes for something that tastes good and satisfies you, then you're going to go to the fast foods. And so one of my simple steps is about picking an eating plan that works for you and stick with it until it doesn't. And then it's time to reevaluate, regroup, and start again. And the concept behind that is about resilience. And sometimes we'll start something and something will come up and stop us. And it's about, instead of going down the path of being able to say, oh, I failed, it's about, okay, let's learn what happened here. What happened was, I went to a wedding and there was all kinds of people, and the next thing I knew, I ate all this food. So it's about reevaluating quickly and getting back on track. And then I have some other ones, which is, and this is an important one, it's about investing your time, energy, thoughts, and finances in improving your health. Because the thing is, you're either investing in your health or you're investing in the disease as it continues on. Because if you do nothing, diabetes does progress. But what I want to get across to people is early on as you can, invest in your health, because that's what's important. That's what you want. You want to be able to, that patient that she would just want to see her daughter graduate. After her daughter graduated, she wanted to see her daughter walk down the aisle. She was able to do that. So we kept moving the mark. And then it was like, I want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids. So again, it's being able to invest so that you can do that. And then obviously one of the steps is about movement. You need to add 150 minutes a week to your exercise program. And so that's one of the ones. And then I'm going through my book right now and looking at and it's about mindset, because to me, mindset is actually the most important thing. And it's about swapping negative thoughts for something that's going to be healthy for you, and then infusing that with feelings and beliefs. So for instance, you don't want to just talk about an eating plan that you're going to do. You're going to want to take a look. First, you want to secure that eating plan that works for you. And then you want to infuse those feelings of, how will I feel when I've gotten to the goal that I want to get to? And as you think those thoughts, infuse that emotion into it. And then if somebody says, well, says something to you, well, I don't know, you're losing weight, you're kind of looking sickly or whatever, swap that negative thought into, oh, this is my goal, this is my plan. And so it's really about just swapping those thoughts as quickly as you can, because you're going to go down the same path if you don't make that change in your thinking plan. And it takes a little bit more effort, but what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain so that you can go down that path that you want to go down.
That's really phenomenal. I was thinking about that, as you said, because I was thinking about sometimes when I get to that beyond hunger part, and go to the refrigerator, I open it up, and of course nothing sounds good or looks good, and then I end up eating something that is totally not good for me. Or if I try to eat foods that I really don't like but they're healthy, end up eating that plus whatever it is that I wanted, because I know that there's, a psychological thing involved with eating and our comfort and everything. And luckily for me, I'm not a diabetic, and, but at the same time, I realize that I sometimes do make unhealthy food choices because of stress and work and things. Do you have any go-to foods or suggestions that people should at least look at that might be something that they could just have for an emergency? Like, okay, you didn't plan, or you ran out of whatever and you're busy or you're traveling. Do you have any suggestions for busy travelers?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. One of the things that I do want to bring up that kind of dovetails into what you're talking about is, and let me just say that, over the years, sometimes I've learned a lot more from my patients than I have from science. And so when I look back, I look at what has been successful for them. And I have to say, hands down, and trust me, we've been through so many diets over the years and eating plans and what's worked and what hasn't. One of the eating plans that my patients in particular, they've taught me, because let me tell you, I went into it kicking, screaming, telling them it was unsafe to do until I really studied it. But one of the eating plans that helps, like you were saying, about you open the fridge, you're hungry, you're looking for something. Well, part of that has to do with what sugar does to your brain. And so one of the eating plans that my patients have successfully put into their lifestyle, despite my initial reaction that this wasn't healthy, is a ketogenic eating plan. And that's kind of like taking that food guide pyramid and turning it upside down, so that instead of grains and carbs being the main portion of your meal, it's really about higher fat foods. And so going back to your question, what's a quick swap? So oftentimes what I tell people that are on insulin in particular, that are traveling, I usually tell them to take a peanut butter sandwich with them, or those crackers with peanut butter and cheese. The whole point is you do want a carbohydrate, because carbohydrates are still good for you. It's just the quality of the carbohydrate and the quantity of the carbohydrate. So you can make a sandwich if you choose, an open face sandwich. is a quick swap if you want to have some cheese. And again, in the ketogenic method of eating, it goes back to what for years we've been told not to do. And that's why I had such a difficult time initially with this. And it's about eating full fat foods. And I had a really difficult time putting my hands around this one. But as I went and looked through the science of it all and realized that we were given a whole lot of misinformation about fat and saturated fats and whether or not it really is equivalent to having cardiovascular disease or heart attack and stroke. So if I refer to more the ketogenic type of eating, a quick swap, a quick fix might be having some nuts. Having some avocado is a wonderful, and almost any type of eating plan that you want to implement that will work for you, avocados are in all of those. And then cheese tends to be a popular one. A nut butter or just the nuts themselves are great. It kind of depends on which eating plan that you're going to try, but maybe even having some deli meat with some cream cheese rolled into it, or even a slice of roast beef wrapped around an asparagus. The whole point of what you're really asking is, what do I need to do so that when I open the door of the fridge that it's there? And so it usually takes a lot of planning. And so with my patients, we'll go over what's a day that you can plan and then do the grocery shopping so that when you do open the fridge, it's there, it's available. And always, always, always vegetables that aren't that are as organic as possible are always a quick fix. It's not usually what we first grab for, but if you start doing that, like having some cucumbers or having some carrots, etc., when you get into that mode, they're actually very satisfying.
Well, that's really good advice because, yeah, actually, a peanut butter sounds really good right now. But you're right. Something like the vegetables, because I'm not kidding. Right before I got on the call, of course, I have not had breakfast yet, and and I should have had breakfast by now, but I haven't. But that was exactly what I was doing. Is I was looking, and of course, nothing appeared good, and so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I did have, like when you said about the different deli meat, because you can get low sodium, higher quality deli meat. And my son has actually been working on bodybuilding, and he's been eating higher quality food. And I don't mind spending extra money for better food as long as it gets eaten. I mean, that's my only thing is I don't want to go and spend a lot of money on organic food if nobody eats it, but as long as it gets eaten, then it's not going to waste, because that's for me the issue. And then you said invest in your health, not in the disease later. And I think to me that would be part of the investment is if you're going to be eating, some of the things nuts, for example, I prefer almonds, and it costs about $8.99 a pound for almonds, already in a bag at a regular store. And when I buy it, I go, oh my God, that's $9. But then I think, yeah, but think about it. It's a pound of ready to eat nuts that are, you eat 10 of those and it would probably be very satisfying. And my son eats those for snacks, and that seems to make him, less cranky. That's one of the things I noticed when he started to eat healthy. His cranky level went way down. When he was eating fast foods and more carbs, he was much more cranky. So I noticed that difference. Is that a real correlation?
Absolutely. That's a great observation, because what happens is with the fast foods, because look at it, just about any of the fast foods are so high in carbs. And then high in an unhealthy fat, and the worst combination of what you can put together is high fat and carbohydrates together. But what happens when you eat a carbohydrate? Almost from the minute it touches your tongue, normally your body's going to give you insulin. But that carbohydrate itself, it's like, bam, it zooms up your blood sugar quickly, not good for the brain, irritating. You talked about grumpiness, crankiness. So now you're getting irritated. You don't even recognize it, actually. And then insulin comes in and then lowers that blood sugar level. And then that creates even more crankiness, grumpiness as well, because your blood sugar now shoots down quickly. Whereas when you eat a fat, it doesn't require insulin at all to be processed. Your blood sugar stays flat. And so I have to admit, in the morning, what I've begun to do is I'll get some macadamia nuts and I'll have, just a couple of those. And let me tell you, at work, I'll have them. And by lunch, maybe I'm getting hungry. But the truth of the matter is the quality of the fats that you have, the better quality, and the more of them that you have, you don't get the crankiness. You don't get the stress that you feel, because you're feeling cranky, because stress is going to get you more when you're not feeling well. And you have this satisfaction of not thinking about food and not being hungry, because thinking about the food and being hungry is the beginning of the fall of going for something that isn't healthy.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah, macadamia nuts are really good. And again, it goes back to a lot of people go, oh my goodness, those are the most expensive nut that you can buy, a little teeny jar. But the reality is, think about the investment in your health. If you can keep your blood sugar levels balanced and keep yourself on an even keel, so that you don't have those wild things like me. My biggest thing is I'll get to work and then I forget to eat. And then by the time I'm going, I'm ravenous.
Yes.
About drinks like coffee, Red Bull, anything, any types of drinks. It's just like the egg. Coffee, tea, you hear, oh, coffee is good for you. Coffee's bad for you. Eggs are good for you. Eggs are bad for you. All of this. And I imagine, like, for example, coffee, I imagine that coffee was bad for you if you put a lot of cream and sugar into it.
Sure.
But do you have any information about coffee, Red Bull, and those? Yes. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, you want to stay away from the things like Red Bull, because a lot of those just deplete your adrenal system, and it just makes your hormones go crazy. So in general, it probably is not the best thing at all for you, and you're better off not to consume them. But coffee, and full disclosure here, I love coffee. I drink coffee all day long. And so my eye is always slanted towards hearing the studies that coffee is beneficial. But the truth of the matter is coffee has more benefits than negatives when it comes to preventing diabetes. And so the issue then becomes, what kind of effect does caffeine have on your body? I have an aunt who cannot have caffeine because her heart rate really speeds up. And so she uses the decaf, which there's still some benefits even from decaf coffee. But coffee itself, you are right on target. It's what you put into it. And I was at one point a Coffee Mate addict, and I am recovering from that. But coffee in general, does it raise your blood sugar if you have diabetes? Yes, it can. As a matter of fact, my type 1 patients that inject or use an insulin pump, they cover it with some insulin. And so because when do we drink coffee? We drink it in the morning. And at the same time, that's when all of our hormones are rising, getting us ready for the day. And so everything kind of goes on an upward swing on your blood sugars. So is it bad that you have to use insulin for that? No, you need insulin for a variety of reasons to keep your blood sugar stable. But in either case, it does make a difference individually whether coffee's good or bad for you or not so good for you. It depends on how caffeine reacts in your body and what it does.
So basically, every single person is an individual. So, like, coffee for me might be perfectly fine, but coffee for another person might make their heart speed up, or it might make
Yes.
them not feel well. Okay, I
Right.
get it. Because I've been a coffee drinker since I was a little girl, but again, I've always drank my coffee black, and
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of laugh at people. The other day, somebody was talking about, oh, I'm going to get off of coffee. And I said, why? And then I said, well, how do you drink your coffee? And of course, they weren't drinking coffee. They're drinking cream and sugar with coffee flavoring. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People, like you said about Coffee Mate, it was that flavor and how Coffee Mate adds a texture to the
Mm-hmm.
coffee. I mean, there's all kinds of things that adding coffee cream and stuff. Like if I'm really, really hungry and there's no food, I'll put cream and sugar if I have it, or milk and sugar and coffee, and it seems to trick my body into thinking it ate.
Yeah.
So I've done that before, but generally I just drink black coffee. So that's good to hear that at least it might be okay. So you work primarily with adults, and can you tell me more about the diabetes nurse and about your other website, your Transform Your Diabetes Health? What's going on with all of that right now? I know you just have the book that just came out. Are you do you work with people? Obviously, I know you work um, at one of the largest HMOs in the country. Do you consult? What else do you do with people or with other facilities?
So I mainly work with the HMO, but I do also coach and I do consultations. I'll have different companies contact me to evaluate their patients. So I do that. What I've done is I've put together a program. It's called the 5Ms of Managing Diabetes, and it goes into meals and movement and mindset, medications and therapies, where it involves integrative health as well. And I'll give you an example of that. For instance, one of the things, and I've been saying this since the early 90s, is that probiotics can be so beneficial, especially if you're taking certain medications. And so looking at probiotics and how do you add health to your body, like you had mentioned earlier something about flaxseed. Flaxseed is so good, and so it's about looking at those things that improve your health and build up your health. And an example that I use, and I didn't know this, but I started gardening, and I loved gardening, but then I would look at these plants and I'd think, wow, they look kind of sickly. And then the more that I did some studying on it, what I found is if you give the proper nutrients and you give the right soil and the vitamins, etc., that now these plants are going to be healthy and they're not going to be subject to disease. So part of looking at, it's not just medications, but it's what are the nutrients that help your body? What are the things that a lot of diabetics have to face? And oftentimes things, as an example of that would be, they'll get cramps in their legs at night. And so I kind of go over all of that. What are some alternatives that might be healthy? And then the last of those 5Ms is monitoring your health. What do you need to know to try and secure your best health and quality of life? What do you need to know about diabetes and what it affects? And, for instance, you should have, an eye exam at a certain frequency of time, and what labs are important. Because the real thing, Tammy, is that it's important to me that patients accept the responsibility for their health, but also partner with their healthcare provider so they know what that healthcare provider is saying. And then they can say, hey, I really would like to go down this path, and this is why. So for me, it's about educating them to be proactive with their health, giving them the information they need to be able to do that. And then, we all need coaching at some point in time, and that's what I love to do. I love to work with my patients, and most of my programs are online or via phone. And I love to be able to find out, tell me what do you need to eliminate so that you can get to that goal? And so we work together with coming up with the solutions. And then if that didn't work, when we talk again, okay, what got in the way? What do we need to remove? So again, you can finally get to that goal that you're trying to get to. So so I do work individually and with patients as well, and they can certainly contact me in my book and the email and
Mary, our audio is acting up. Are you still there?
I am, yeah. I heard a blank for a long time.
Okay. The last I heard, everyone, just repeat how you can get in contact with you via your website or email.
So my website is www, and then it's thediabetesnurse.com. It's THEDIABETESNURSE.com, or you can email.
For some reason, whenever you say email, the audio cuts out.
Okay, so I won't say that word, and here it is. And it would be Mary at thediabetesnurse.com.
Okay, Mary at the diabetesnurse.com. And again, you've got the Diabetes Blueprint book, and is that available on Amazon?
Yes, it is. It's available now on Amazon for 99 cents.
Yay, 99 cents. Well, that's a great deal. And also, I mean, think about, I really learned a lot in our short conversation today.
Yay.
Because again, I'm actually going to go to the store and stock up on some of these things, because as you were talking, I was going, well, gee, I can go buy some high quality lunch meat and maybe some different cheese, and I can go buy I love cucumbers, and I do like raw vegetables, and of course I like nuts. It's just a matter of you don't have to bypass that Publix bakery aisle.
I know.
Because that's one of my downfalls. And I mean, I used to really go for the donuts, sugar glazed donuts, but they don't really even taste good anymore. So now I think my biggest downfall is on my birthday, the buttercream frosting, because I know for a fact I go into sugar shock when I eat cake, because all of a sudden I'll eat the cake and then I'll get really, really tired.
Yeah.
Take a nap. So to me, I kind of call it sugar shock, because that's kind of how I feel. I just feel all of a sudden I'm just like exhausted, and the only thing I could ever figure out was exactly that. I just ate cake with a lot of frosting because I like the frosting, and I know that's what 100%. So, great information today, Mary. I really, really do appreciate that. And again, it's the diabetesnurse.com. And I believe it's on the diabetesnurse.com where you have the free download for the 5Ms.
Yes, I am going to. I do. Actually, it's being built today. I'm doing a talk on Monday, and people will be able to download it. So at the end of today, you can go to the diabetesnurse.com/book, and you'll be able to download the PDF version. The only glitch is I'm always updating this book. So this is a static. You'll only get what I currently have, and I have even more information that I'll be adding in the future. So Kindle probably will be the most up-to-date, but you absolutely can download the PDF probably at the end of today.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Mary. And again, great education. And I'm lucky to know you personally, so I can
Thank you.
tell everyone that you know your stuff. And it's not just about diabetes. I think everyone could really benefit from just talking to you, Mary, about what to eat, the exercise,
Yes.
things that you can do to have that quality of life. And then also, if you do have diabetes, you definitely need to talk to Mary, because she is, like I would say, one of the leading experts, and you're so up to date on the latest in the protocols, the medications, the equipment. I mean, there's so much involved in diabetes care. And again, we need to stop this statistic. It needs to go down, not up to 1 in 2. We need to make it like, 1 in 100 or something, because diabetes, from what you've said to me today, it sounds like it's one of the things that we really could stop.
Yes.
By paying attention and eating properly and exercising properly and just being mindful of what we're doing to ourselves. And like you said earlier, invest in the health instead of in the disease. That's my big takeaway. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mary?
Sure. I do want to just stress one thing. If anybody's ever been told that they have prediabetes, or God forbid the phrase borderline diabetes, please invest in your health right away, because then you can prevent going on to develop diabetes. And let me tell you, I'm so passionate about this because I see how it takes out people's organs and parts, etc. The whole time you won't have pain. And if you'll admit, I think we can all admit that pain is what stops us from doing something and get it checked out. But if you don't have pain, you think everything is fine. That's the deception behind diabetes and prediabetes. You feel perfectly fine. You may fall asleep on the couch after dinner and think you're just getting older. So I guess what I want to say is, especially if you have prediabetes, you can stop it and stop it in its tracks from going on to develop diabetes. But even if you have diabetes, there's a way of bringing it back so it looks like you may not have it at all, although I would say you can't totally cure it at this point. So that's my top message.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. Everyone, definitely go check out the diabetesnurse.com. Talk to Mary. She can help you get some really huge answers. With that, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. To get more solid health and wellness information, visit optimalhealthradio.com.